So this is part 2 of the top 10 seductive and intoxicating fragrances for men. Now in the first video we looked at 5 fragrances and I said this next video will be also a 5 fragrance video. However, I was looking at my collection and there was a few more I had to include in here. So we've got 8 fragrances to look at. Starting off very quickly, this is more an honourable mention. This is Black Tie by Jeremy Fragrance. The only reason I'm not really including it is because it's very expensive. Unless you buy it on like the half price deal, it's really overpriced and I don't really agree with the pricing structure of that company. Black Tie is definitely the best in Fragrance One's line and I really like this. It's extremely unique and it's really smoky with a really awesome and juicy orange or mandarin note in the opening. I just find this really intoxicating and every time I've worn it, I've got very good feedback, really good performance, and this is certainly an intoxicating fragrance. This is Black Tie by Fragrance One. Let's move on to the actual list. Starting off with a designer fragrance. This is Scandal by Jean Paul Gaultier. There are 3 in the line now, the Le Parfum and also the new Absolute Gold. This is the EDT, and I think this is the best one to get. The other 2 don't really change that much. They don't do anything really different and they don't really improve on the original in my opinion. Now Scandal is quite interesting because it mixes aromatic notes. So aromatic notes are normally like herbal notes. Anything herbal like, you know, sage, rosemary, or like things like lavender, that's a aromatic note, but it's mixed with sweet caramel. So you get a real contrast of notes here. You get the herbal notes mixed with a sweet caramel. And I think it smells really nice. And for an eau de toilette, the performance is outstanding, really good projection, and the sillage is amazing. Remember, this video, we are focusing a lot on the sillage, how it smells to people around you. I think Scandal is a really excellent designer fragrance. It does lean a little bit youthful, but not that youthful. So anyone of any age can wear it. It's just got a bit of sweetness in there, which might be a bit youthful for some people. So from Parfums de Marly, we have ALTHAIR. This is one of their newer fragrances. And this one also has some contrasting notes like Scandal that we just looked at. Now the contrasting notes in here are vanilla and ambroxan. I have a raw material of ambroxan in my perfume making supply and it comes in a powdery form and you can really, once you know the smell of it, you can really pick it up in certain fragrances and I really pick it up in here. The mix of ambroxan and vanilla give the vanilla a really airy quality. So vanilla sometimes can be really dense, sweet and syrupy, but in ALTHAIR it's almost very airy, so it does come across to me as a really good kind of spring or summer evening fragrance because the vanilla is not too heavy and cloying. This one also has a lot of spices and for me the spices in here with the vanilla remind me of gingerbread. If you ever smell like a gingerbread man, it brings back those sort of childhood memories for me. I think ALTHAIR is a really good release from Parfums de Marly and I think the scent trail and the sillage is really seductive and intoxicating. ALTHAIR should be tried before you buy. You really should sample this because the sweetness is really overloaded, so it's not an easy fragrance for everyone to wear, and if you're not a huge fan of sweetness, it might not be for you, but the projection and the performance is really good on ALTHAIR. And remember, we have fragrance samples available in the UK and EU at visionaryfragrances.com. So if you want to try any of these fragrances in sample form like ALTHAIR, visionaryfragrances.com is the place to go. We have a designer fragrance next, and this is from Tom Ford Black Orchid Parfum. This is one that not many people seem to talk about, and I don't know why, because for me, Black Orchid Parfum is the best in the Black Orchid line, and I got a sample of this with another purchase about 2 or 3 years ago, I think. 2021 is when I got a sample of Black Orchid Parfum, and as soon as I tried the sample, I knew I had to buy a bottle of it because it just smelled so intriguing, different and unique to me, and I love these complex and intriguing fragrances. Now normally Black Orchid, so the original EDT and EDP, are quite feminine leaning because they're quite floral. They are of course unisex, and let's not get into that. You can wear anything that you want as long as it smells good on you, but typically for me they smelt a little bit too feminine. However, with Black Orchid Parfum they have introduced a note of rum, so it just gives it a bit more of a masculine touch, and I just love the complexity and the kind of individuality that Black Orchid Parfum gives you. It's really for cold weather in my opinion. I wouldn't really wear this in the spring and summertime just because it's quite dense, heavy and sweet, and not to mention the performance is really outstanding. So I mainly wear this in the winter, but if you want a fragrance to go out, if you're going out to a bar or club or something and you want something kind of head turning, there are not many better fragrances on the market than Black Orchid Parfum. This is wonderful. We're talking about seductive and intoxicating fragrances. The central on this is unreal. Another niche fragrance up next, and a fragrance I've never spoken about on my channel. This is Arabian Tonka by MONTALE. This is another one I had a sample of and immediately bought a full bottle because I loved it. This is, of course, a tonka bean style fragrance. Tonka bean can smell different depending on how it's used, but it's usually an aroma chemical called coumarin is what makes the tonka bean smell. And it can smell quite tobacco-like, it can smell vanillic, it can smell like almond. And for me in here, it smells very vanillic with a kind of almost almondy smell, but it's very faint. It focuses more on the vanilla scent in here. Now, Arabian's Tonka might be the strongest fragrance on this list, which is saying something because of some of these fragrances are really strong, but this is almost beast mode. The kind of projection and longevity you get with this, really outstanding. You get oud in here, you get oud, spices, and that kind of vanillic tonka bean. The oud is not challenging, it's really well done, it's really subdued, it's not hard to wear. The hardest part of this fragrance, the most challenging part, is the spices and the strength of it. It's really strong, and if you're not into really strong polarizing fragrances, you might not like this too much. So this is lots of vanilla sweetness with spices from saffron. You have hints of rose as well, and then that kind of oud wood in the base. I think this is wonderful. Cold weather, definitely. Winter time, strong, powerful, head turning, cutting through the cold air, all of that. This is Arabian's Tonka by MONTALE. This is fantastic. Now on to the last three. This is Oud for Greatness. This actually has some similar notes than what was in Arabian's Tonka. We have oud and we have spices, but this one is a lot more dry and not as sweet. It's nowhere near as sweet as Arabian's Tonka. Hasn't got any of those vanillic or tonka bean notes. This focuses on a kind of spicy lavender with oud in the background, but it's really head turning. It's powerful, and this is like a statement making confident fragrance. I think you need to wear this with some confidence because it is really strong. To me, it smells very masculine and dominant. The oud in Oud for Greatness is just done so well because oud can be really difficult to wear, but it's done just so well in here. It's mixed with all the spices and the lavender. So again, like Arabian's Tonka, the oud is not challenging. It's the spices and the strength of Oud for Greatness, which might be difficult to wear for some people, but you really need to wear this with some confidence because it's a polarizing fragrance. The scent trail and the sillage in Oud for Greatness is unreal. The last two fragrances are two of my favorite fragrances in my collection. Not the top two, but out of my whole collection, they are two fragrances that I really love, and I think they fit really well into this list. This is Dior Parfum. This is, I would say, one of the best designer fragrances ever made. It smells so high quality and expensive, you could mistake this for a 200, 300 pound niche fragrance. It's quite hard to find. You don't find it in your normal online stores or your retail shops. You can only really buy this on Dior's website or in the airports. I often see it when I'm traveling between Europe and the UK, and you can of course buy it quite easily on Dior's website now. It was sold out for a long time, but now it's back in stock. Whenever I want to buy it, it's always quite easy to find. This is just an upgraded version of Dior Homme Intense. It's a more classy and sophisticated version, if I could put it like that, even though Dior Homme Intense is classy and sophisticated. This is just in a whole league of its own. It's a lot more dominant, it's stronger, and more challenging, I would say, as well. This has a beautiful note of iris, as does the whole Dior Homme line, but you've got this leather note as well, hints of rose, and soft woods in the base. It's a woody fragrance in the base note, but not really like, you know, strong woods. It's really soft and delicate. Contrasting notes here, you have an opening of kind of mandarin orange. So the opening is quite energetic and beautiful. And then the contrasting notes of the leather and the rose and the woods in the base notes. It's said that there's oud in here. I didn't pick up any oud at all in here. It's just not a note that I pick up. But for me, this is an elegant fragrance suited for special occasions. Again, like a lot of these fragrances, you need to wear this with confidence. It's for wearing smart clothes. It's going to somewhere a bit more upmarket, not a casual everyday scent. This is Dior Homme Parfum. What do you think the last fragrance is? It's a fragrance that no one talks about. And I don't know why, because I think it's a phenomenal fragrance. This is Mystery Tobacco by Karolina Herrera. I've never heard anyone talk about this, and I don't really know why. This does rival Parfums de Marly Carlisle. There are certainly a lot of similarities between this and Carlisle, and possibly Red Tobacco to some extent, but this is miles better than Red Tobacco. I'm going to focus on a comparison between this and Carlisle for this review, and there are a lot of similarities between these two. This one opens up a lot more brighter than Carlisle. You have ginger and citruses in the opening, and the citruses are really stunning. It's very light and fruity in the opening. It doesn't give you this strong tobacco smell, but that does come later. And you get the ginger as well, so ginger and citrus in the opening, but then when it dries down, it becomes sweet and you get this beautiful tobacco. It's really smooth. That's why I'm not comparing it to red tobacco, because red tobacco is kind of all over the place, really harsh, and not a bad fragrance, but it hasn't got that smoothness that this has. This is smooth and sweet and slightly fruity in the opening. I would almost say this beats Carlisle. This is really fantastic. The smoothness and sweetness in here make a fragrance that would be quite challenging in a way because of the woods and the tobacco, but the smoothness and the sweetness make this kind of really easy to wear. And you know, any sort of date night scenario, any cold weather, autumn, winter date night, going out on a night out, this would work really well. It's there's nothing harsh in here. There's nothing harsh, brash in your face. It's just really smooth and well blended. It's hard to say whether this beats Carlisle. Certainly not in the performance. I think Carlisle still has slightly better performance, but I just love smelling it. It smells so addictive. The fact that it is so well blended and smooth just make it really nice and easy to wear. This is Mystery Tobacco by Karolina Herrera, and I think if you like Carlisle and to some extent red tobacco, you really need to try this. So this was the last part of the fragrances that smell seductive and intoxicating. I really hope you got something from this video. I think all of these fragrances are amazing and they are complex and they all have a really valuable place in my collection. Let me know, what's your favorite fragrance from this list? See you soon.